9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Beyond Orbit. Hello everyone, I'm Katie Prescott, Technology Business Editor at The Times of London, and I'll be your guide for the next hour as we find out what space tech means for life here on Earth. Now, for most of us, space remains out of reach. So let's hear the experiences of someone who's actually been there. Tuva Ataseva, engineer, researcher, and astronaut with the Turkish Space Agency.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tuva Atasever. I am the astronaut with the Turkish Space Agency. And this morning, I want to briefly talk to you about our own human spaceflight missions that we conducted, and also the reason why we carry out any kind of research under microgravity conditions. So, in 2021, the Turkish Space Agency announced Turkey's national space program, and within it we had 10 different goals to achieve over the next decade, right? We had our own moon missions, spaceport implementation and building to launch our own satellite launch vehicles. We had our own native satellite development program within the National Space Program, and also, dear to my heart, is the Turkish Astronaut and Science Mission. So as part of our country's 100-year anniversary, the Turkish Space Agency wanted to send our first ever astronaut to the International Space Station to conduct scientific research. So in 2024, we ended up carrying out that historic first Turkish astronaut mission and sent our very dear astronaut Alper Gezer Avcı to International Space Station to conduct 13 different microgravity research investigations. And 5 months after we completed that first mission, I was fortunate enough to go on a suborbital mission on board Virgin Galactic's VSS Unity, and we ended up carrying out 7 different microgravity research investigations. And what you're seeing is actually a footage from my own spaceflight, and I must say it was the most exhilarating and exciting thing I've ever done in my life. But when you are in microgravity, as opposed to the excitement of going into space, it was extremely peaceful. It was the most serene, most tranquil thing I've ever felt in my life. And I will come back to that serenity and tranquility, if you will, just a little bit. So we completed our human spaceflight missions, and we ended up carrying out in total 20 microgravity research investigations as part of those human spaceflight missions. So I said microgravity a couple of times, right? But what is microgravity? So right now, we all are on the surface of the planet, right? And there's an acceleration that is acting upon us all the times. We call it 1G, one gravitational factor. It is 9.81 meters per second squared of acceleration is acting upon us, is pulling us, the center of the planet, us to it, all the times. Even when I'm lifting my arm, I'm fighting against that 1G of acceleration. But since we have been exposed to that environment the day we were born, we're not aware. But when you go to space, in Earth's orbit, what is acting upon you is microgravity. It's essentially 1/millionth or what we are exposed to right now. And in that weightless environment, what happens? You start to float in space. No pun intended, right? You start to float in mid-air without any wings. Again, it was the most peaceful feeling I've ever felt in my life. And that peace is not something that I just feel from a phenomenological perspective. The materials that we take to space, they're also experiencing that peaceful, that serene environment, and that allows us to manufacture some complex and multi-phase materials with better purity and highest homogeneity, right? For example, just a couple of examples of what we can achieve under microgravity conditions. We can manufacture some advanced filter materials, for example, and utilize them for carbon or poisonous gas capture at power plants or other kind of manufacturing plants. We can manufacture and synthesize some highly efficient battery systems and help the electrification of the transportation systems. We can create, we can build, if you will, magically. There's a great quote that I like from, I think it was from Arthur C. Clarke, which says that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, right? It's just magically we can create communication optical crystals, right? Those complex materials, and attain more resilient communication systems. Those are more on the inorganic side of things, but what is really truly fascinating is organic manufacturing and biological activities that we conduct under microgravity conditions. We can attain better disease models under microgravity conditions because for living organisms, microgravity and space environment essentially is an accelerated life cycle testing environment. We can test out and develop some novel therapeutics that can solve some of the major health issues that people face on the planet. We can develop some stem cell therapies because certain strains of stem cells, it turns out, they grow, they expand and differentiate better under microgravity conditions. One fascinating thing is maybe in the future, we're gonna 3D bioprint some viable human tissues, send them to planet for transplantation for those people who are in need of an organ transplant. So, I mean, I can go on and give you maybe tens of more such applications that is going to transform the face of the planet. But the point is, through these applications that we're going to be able to only achieve through microgravity conditions, we're going to be developing potential solutions for some of the major problems that we're facing as a humanity in climate and health. And the infrastructure that we're going to build in space is hopefully going to enable those applications. It is going to uplift people's lives, but at the same time, it is going to generate billions, maybe tens of billions of dollars of revenue, financial gains, and uplift people's lives. So all that infrastructure that will hopefully build in space, its implications, its benefits will go beyond orbit. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Tuva, for sharing more about your extraordinary experience and also microgravity, a fantastic example of a space technology that has clear applications here on Earth. Welcome, everyone, to Beyond Orbit. My name is Katie Prescott. I work for the Times of London, where I cover technology. And it is a privilege to be with you here today to talk about one of the hottest stories in tech, which is, of course, space. Just 2 months ago, we saw humanity once again orbit the moon with the launch of Artemis 2. Elon Musk is planning to launch his SpaceX onto the stock market next week at a valuation of $1.75 trillion, which of course would be a record. His ambition is to make visiting space cheaper and easier, and even to colonize Mars. Is that now so far-fetched? As one London bank put it recently, in a note that really jumped out to me, it is becoming clearer that space will replicate many of the economies and industries that we see here on Earth. Now, we're going to hear from a range of people today who are developing the technology in orbit, but also looking at applications here on Earth. And of course, we want to have input from you throughout the sessions, and you can submit your questions or thoughts using Slido, either through the QR code that's on the screen now, or by going to slido.com and putting in the code 3639306, that's 3639306, and selecting Beyond Orbit from the menu. We're going to leave some time at the end for questions, but also I'll be putting them to the panel as we go along. Clearly, in space tech, finance plays a huge role. So it's time to hear about the European Investment Bank's role in this new era of innovation and growth. And I'm delighted to welcome to the stage Karl Nehammer, Vice President of the European Investment Bank and the former Chancellor of Austria. Thank you.
So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Especially thank you to Mr. Atasever for safely navigating us back to Earth. It's a pleasure to join you today at a moment when Europe's innovation story is entering a new phase. For a long time, space and AI were seen as frontiers, exciting but distant. Today, that has changed. What we are witnessing is not a vision for the future, but a reality shaping our economies here and now. Space is no longer just rockets and satellites. It is data. Data that powers decisions on Earth. From agriculture and energy grids to logistics and disaster response, space-based information combined with artificial intelligence is translating into practical commercial services and, importantly, into new business models. This shift is part of a broader transformation of the space sector. What was once a government-driven domain is now increasingly driven by private investment, lower launch costs, and a rapidly expanding ecosystem of innovative companies. For Europe, this presents both an opportunity and a responsibility. Europe has clear strengths, world-class research, advanced manufacturing, and leading programs such as Copernicus and Galileo, which generate high-value data streams. At the same time, we must address fragmentation and ensure that European innovators can scale, compete, and retain leadership globally. This is precisely where institutions like the European Investment Bank and EBRD and partners such as the European Space Agency have a critical role to play. At the EIB, we are working to bridge the gap between innovation and market deployment, supporting both established players and new entrants across the value chain, from satellites to ground infrastructure and data services. Because the real value of space today lies not only in orbit, but in what enables on the ground smarter agriculture, resilient infrastructure, secure connectivity, and more competitive European businesses. Crucially, this is also a chapter written by small and medium enterprises. Many of the most dynamic applications are being developed by startups and scale-ups, transforming space-derived data tangible services. Our role must be to create the conditions for these companies to grow, to access finance, and to scale across tangible services. Our role must be to create conditions for these companies. This is our goal. This is what we have to face. I look forward to hearing from business leaders on their experiences in this new digital frontier. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Carl, for setting that out so clearly. As Carl just said, the real value of space today is not just in orbit, far from it. But space can feel very far away from our lived experience. And today's session is all about why it matters for us here on Earth. What are the implications of space tech for all of us? And I'm delighted to welcome a stellar panel to the stage who've all got frontline experience of this to talk about this today. So please give a warm welcome to Rune Flobberhagen, who leads the Earth observation activities at the European Space Agency. If you'd like to join me on the stage. Thank you. Jano Pass, who's the co-founder and CTO of 10 Lines, which is an Estonian business using data from space, and more on that shortly. And Kizito Odhiambo, who's the founder and Group Chief Executive of Agribora in Kenya. Thank you, Kizito. Now, let's find out, first of all, a little bit more about what your business, Kizito, does, Agribora.
Agribora is an agri-fintech company in Kenya. We help smallholder farmers transform their farming activities through data-driven decision-making. First, we geotag their farms to capture the size of the land and the precise location. With this data, in partnership with the Kenya Space Agency and the European Space Agency, we are able to monitor the farms to capture the health of the crop. We also capture the issues with pests and diseases to just understand how their crops are growing. We provide early warning messages to the farmers to help them in planning and also just monitoring their crop. Historically, women farmers and even the smallholder farmers have not been able to access the formal credit because of lack of collateral. Using satellite data, we've been able to impact over 3,500 farmers who have been linked to financial institutions. With the projected crop yields and also the farm size, financial institutions are able to see that these farmers are credit-worthy and they can be able to give them credit when the time comes.
Wow, what an amazing way to start the session. Agribora, it seems to me, is a perfect example of a company that people might not associate immediately with space. Could you just explain to the audience what sort of space tech you use and a little bit more about how the business came about?
Yes, thank you very much for having me. And really, our customers don't really understand space. So it was a bit far-fetched to try and talk about the data and space to the clients because it always remained under the hood. So
because your clients are farmers, right?
Smallholder farmers, right? We are having more than 7 million smallholder farmers in Kenya who are producing 90% of the crop that we need for the country. And back in 2018, as I just finished my studies in Germany in electrical engineering, I was basically looking at how do we use technology to support smallholder farmers produce better. And at that time, the idea was to provide agro-weather advisories to help smallholder farmers really get the right time to plant because we are a rain-fed dependent ecosystem. So planting 2 weeks early or 2 weeks late could lead to a complete harvest loss.
So sort of understanding more about the weather conditions and,
Yes.
and that can inform what they do.
Exactly. So with the European Space Agency, we got the first ticket to basically help build the first product, which was agro-weather advisory. A farmer would get a message every week advising them if this is the right time to plant or the right time to apply a fertilizer, not that you get it run off when it rains. But they were not ready to pay for it. And so we had to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, the farmer said, this is really good. I love information. Climate change is real. But that does not put food on my table. That information is not sufficient. What I want is I need credit. I need to be able to grow more, and I need a better market. So we really got pushed by the clients to move away from looking at how the space technology and everything that you could do that sometimes sounds cool and really awesome. How that then translates to better products and basically more money in their pockets. And over time, as you've seen in the video, we transitioned from trying to look at intelligence from satellite data, analyzing agro-weather information, looking at the crop yield estimations, to really ending up helping farmers get credit for the inputs, but then also at the output side of the market, because what we realized is, as we supported smallholder farmers to get access to input finance, many banks would tell the farmers to pay their loan within the 9 months, just at harvest. And that is the point where all the farmers are harvesting and the prices are lowest. But 4 or 5 months later, the prices will start to go back up, but the farmer has already sold at a loss. So we supported them in not only knowing what is the yield estimation, but right now we are including warehouse receipt financing, where farmers can hold on to the commodity at harvest and engage the bank to then extend the credit line into now a collateral-backed financing, and not just depending on the harvest time to get the loan back.
And clearly that's what they're worried about. How much do you talk to them now about the space tech element of Agribora? Or do you sort of not?
So I think the biggest aha moment for us was during the COVID time, when we tried to support agri-processors to get a better vision of where are potatoes, where is corn growing, where is sorghum growing, and how much of these volumes could I potentially get. And we did all that, together with the support of ISA through the Incubed program. And the agri-processors were excited, but they said, but Kizito, I want to see the product in front of me. It's good to know where it's growing, but I want it in front of me. And so we had to change our business mindset. And we needed to move away from the technology more to the product.
Yeah.
And so we became sort of like an Amazon for agriculture, if you will, because we now had to have warehouses and think about logistics. And now the satellite data is so critical for our business, because that is the edge we have in the market, to be able to know where to set up the warehouses when the harvest season is starting. And also food safety, if I may just add this one point. One of the biggest challenges we are facing with the grain production in East Africa is food safety. Aflatoxin, as one of the challenges in grains, it's fungi in grain, and if you don't dry your crop well, it's going to contain a lot of aflatoxin, which is carcinogenic, so it can lead to cancer. So this is one of the biggest challenges that off-takers are having. Now, with satellite data today, we are able to basically visualize where are the regions that are highly prone to have flourishing aflatoxin growth, and basically then provide credit for the right inputs to go to the smallholder farmers, ultimately helping our business to be able to source better and source better quality products. So at the end of the day, space data is critical, but it's not the language we'd use for our customers and our clients. It's the language we'd use basically to build the car, the engine of the car, and everything that the client sees is the good car that is basically able to get them where they want to.
Thank you. Jano, we're going to hear more about your business shortly, but I'd like to ask both of you a question about this idea of comprehension of space technology. Runa, you've been at the European Space Agency, I think, for about 25 years?
Correct.
Do you think that there is more awareness now or understanding of how space tech, of the sort of data that Kizito was talking about, can help businesses here? Or do you still feel that, there's a lack of understanding there?
Certainly there is more awareness. We are lucky, certainly in Europe also, that the let's say, understanding also at the political level of, let's say, the real value of space, also as Governor Nehammer was saying before, is the value that it brings to citizens for governance, for business, and for people. In Europe in particular, we are seeing very, very strong focus on this. We are lucky that 1/3 of the European space program is devoted to Earth observation. On top of that, the entire application domain, which involves things like navigation, telecommunication, services in general, are fundamental pillars of the space program, so we are lucky to be in this situation. And it means also that we have been able to do things like what Kisitu and Agribor are talking about to demonstrate the value of what we can do of bringing these solutions further. That said, I think we should all realize that the amount of information and the amount of data that comes back from space today, every day, we are talking hundreds and hundreds of terabytes and perhaps even petabytes of data on a daily basis coming back to Earth, converting all of that into actionable information and meaningful decisions and making the best use of it in all sectors where we could take and play a role, that potential is still largely underutilized. We have plenty of good examples, like the one Kisitu was talking about, which is wonderful, yeah. But there is a limit to what space agencies alone can do. We need to work with other stakeholders at policy level, at financial level, and so on, in order to make the bridge or create a bridge between the technology and the space solutions into all the areas, into all the projects at the global level. And that is becoming a core part of our space program in Europe. I have myself been part of creating one of these so-called pillars of the space program that deals with these things. But this is actually is a funny thing because it's a part of the space program that we cannot carry out alone. It's impossible. We need to get to know each other. We need to, I like to use the terminology or the term dance together. We need to invite other players, in particular in this case, since you are in the context of EBRD, the international financial institutions to be part of the scaling, the part of the economy behind all of this to make good use of these things. We can demonstrate, we can show what is the value. We don't come with a restaurant menu saying this is the things that we deliver, but we invite you to get into our kitchen to see what we produce and how it can be best used. And one of the practical ways in which we have been doing that at the European Space Agency is through long-standing relationships with the international financial institutions and trying to sort of do that bridge building. But still, there are barriers to companies like Agribora to actually scale their solutions. Kisitu have been doing that in Kenya, but there is no reason why this tool could not be applied in other countries, in other regions, and so on. But I'm not sure how many people have been knocking on his door to say, listen, can you do what you're doing in Asia, in Latin America, in other places in the globe? And that is something that is a little bit missing. There is plenty of data. There is plenty of expertise. There is a lot of goodwill. But what we cannot do without the appropriate mechanism, and again referring to Governor Nehammer, saying, okay, we need to create the conditions to bring these business solutions into the places where they actually make an impact. Because the green transition and all of this will not happen with public funds alone. And that's why we are so interested in the European Space Agency to build this dialogue with the international financial institutions to do much more in this domain.
Thank you. Jano, from a business perspective, do you feel that people are understanding more about what you're doing, that you push space tech as part of your company, or is it something that you keep very much behind the scenes?
Good question. I'll talk about my business probably
and yes,
a bit later as well.
But
yeah, basically the robots and for people, the robots automation is coming and the robots are coming. So people are a little bit hesitant about the robots overall. So if you include the robots and the space technology combined, maybe it makes it a little bit too complicated for our
sci-fi.
Yeah, for our clients. But overall, I would like to emphasize as well that space technology is very important, and we came from another angle that we started with the specific need or specific application.
Yeah.
Then we expanded. We understood that space technology can actually evolve a lot what we're doing, and we integrated the positioning and we integrated the Earth observation as well, which is very important. But when we went through our route, we didn't even know that this is possible. So I come from Estonia, and we have a vibrant startup ecosystem there, but we found out that there's these programs like ESA-BIC, or the Business Incubator, and we went through that, and through that we actually understood that this is something we can apply and that can help us a lot. So this is very good that these kind of programs exist. This creates awareness, and yeah, our users also, when I said that they're a little bit afraid of the robotics and space technology, although they use the Google Maps, they understand that this data comes from somewhere, and they use it day to day in their applications. So in that sense, when we tell that, yeah, we're using that information, this platform, and enhancing it with some features that might be available for you, it might make sense to start emphasizing this a little bit more.
Well, in the spirit of show, don't tell, why don't we watch the video which tells us a little bit more about 10 Lines, your company.
We are automating the payment marking industry. We stripe lines on Earth using data from space.
We utilize Earth observation data to plan the route for the robot, and then we use GNSS positioning to get very accurate lines on the ground. We are at the intersection of robotics, AI, and space. One robot reduces almost 2 tons of CO2 per year compared to the manual methods.
What used to take days of manual labor, 10 Lines robots can now execute in a matter of hours. By removing human error and replacing it with satellite-driven precision, we have created a standardized process scalable all around the world.
Fascinating. I have to say, to me, road striping robots doesn't automatically scream space company.
True.
When did you first realize that space tech was crucial to what you're doing?
Our clients are striping companies who stripe every day, paving companies who put the roads and the payment there, and they need to use the currently old-fashioned ways, and it's not very healthy work overall. And people are really not wanting to do that kind of work anymore. So when you start this application,
literally painting lines.
they're painting lines, it's fumes, it's actually gasoline-based engines a lot. Most of the equipment has gasoline-based engines, so that's why you say also that with 2 tons of CO2 reduction per robot per year, it's actually, everything is electric now and it's much more efficient. But we started with the application, we expanded that, and then we started understanding that, yes, of course, we needed positioning, understanding where the robot is in the world, and infrastructure needs all the time renewing. So when we started understanding the positioning is there, we went through the ESA-BIC program, we understood that there's also the Earth observation side. So the robot needs to know where to put the lines on the ground. When we actually started working with the Earth observation, we understood that you can program the robot by just drawing the lines on the satellite images, and that's how you transfer the knowledge to the robots, basically. And that's how the robot knows where to put the line. In that sense, we started with a specific application, but we expanded through that, and now we're working with ESA. Another feasibility study we finished last year, we're working with to automate and understand how are the lines wearing out, how to renew the infrastructure, because currently it's just a guess-based game. So we're making it even better to estimate, to understand what conditions were used when they were applying this, and also for the self-driving cars, the lines, it makes it much safer if the lines are more visible. They can navigate much better, people can understand where the cars need to go, so in the future it's much more needable.
Now, I want to move on to talk about the international challenges shortly, but one of the things that really struck me about your company is you're Estonian, but your customers are all American.
Yes, that's true.
Why is that, do you think?
Yes, so we started from Estonia. It's not a very big country, so it's 1.3 million people. It is a market. We did a lot of projects there, the national airports, the city, military bases, but we understood right away that as this solution is needed all around the world, we bought tickets to the US and found out that there's no automation there as well. So we went from Estonia, we knew right away that we want to go to US, because this is one of the biggest markets, and Europe will be next for us. But US, we are engineering, everything is happening in Estonia. We're an Estonian-based company, but we have a subsidiary in the US, and operations and sales is happening there. So we knew that even if we go to Latvia, for example, it's the same effort. Do we go to Latvia or do we go to the US? Doesn't matter. We have a lot of effort we need to put into this, and US is just a big market and we can move much quicker.
Right, but plans to open, I mean, to have clients in Europe and...
Not currently, but we're working on this. But mostly we have been focusing, we're scaling in the US, so it's, we're almost 7 different states in the US now, so we're scaling. But yeah, we are like assembling most of the robots here in Estonia, engineering is in Estonia, so we are really focused and we like that aspect.
Yeah, an amazing story. Should we talk about the international aspect to all of this? I mentioned in my introduction Elon Musk, SpaceX, Artemis 2. Often when we think of the big space programs, the big space businesses, they're based in the US. Rune, where does Europe stand on the international stage with space, and how do we close that gap with our friends across the Atlantic?
So, what I can say is that this part of the space program is the part of the space program where Europe is second to none technologically worldwide. There is no, everyone in the world is jealous about the Earth observation program that Europe has been able to put together. And that is due to foresight, that is due to good public sector management of all of these domains for decades, maybe close to 50 years. I mean, we are celebrating now more than 25 years of the Copernicus system, for example, which is fundamental to the background monitoring of the state of the planet. And through this program, which is a partnership between various players, including the European Union, but also the European Space Agency, we have been able to create, let's say, a system where we have guaranteed access to information about this planet for free, for everyone, for the world, continuously, not just now, but also in the next decades. And based on all of that, there has been a strong impetus also for companies to build on all of this. So we are, technologically speaking, the information that we are providing is second to none worldwide. This is understood, and I think it's recognized also by those who are competing with us, that we are hard to beat in this domain. The problem that we are facing in Europe is in the scaling of all of this. Taking all those products and services, the company initiatives that we are seeing in Europe, to a scale like the one that you were mentioning. Yeah. Access to late-stage financing is difficult. We are fragmented in Europe. You just have to read the Draghi and Letta reports, and you will understand exactly how we are seeing that also at the highest political level. This is also affecting the space sector. So the companies are actually, in the end, seeing a barrier where there is a thinking, maybe that is more at a country level, or at least we have not the culture of access to big late-stage financing in Europe that allows us to create these global champions in an easy way, or an easy way comparable to the United States, for example. There is also another issue here, which I think is rather fundamental, which is that many of those organizations, people and businesses who should be customers for Earth observation or space-based technologies, more generally speaking, they are not yet even aware that they should be so.
Yeah.
This is something to reflect on. Now, I talked before about the untapped potential here. There are practices in all areas of society. I mean, all organizations have their practices. There is the technology gap, the language gap. We are now here in the home of a bank. We are in a hotel, but still, okay, this is EBRD home for the moment. We at the Space Agency, we don't speak the language of the bankers. And vice versa, I don't think that most bankers speak space language either. Yeah? So there is also a barrier here, understanding each other. So when I say that, a lot of organizations, a lot of businesses who actually would do better business, make more money if they would invest a bit in the space technology. They don't even know that they should be doing so.
So, the answer.
And also for us on the other side, we do not understand all the challenges and problems that exist in society, in the projects that the banks are looking at. And we really need to stick our heads together. This is the bottom line of all of this. There's no easy solution. We have to do it together. And that's why we try hard with all the major financial institutions and also with our programmatic instruments to support all of this. We have been working on this now for 15 years, roughly. And it is growing. But to all the people in the room, if I may say so, the things that we could do together, if we really decide to scale this, are much bigger than what we are seeing today.
So it sounds like we need to send more bankers to space. That's what so if the challenges Rune set out there with finance, but also communication and explaining to people, whether that's in finance or beyond, why it matters, what did you two both find was the most challenging in setting up your business? Because starting with you. And I guess you may have specific challenges from operating Kenya.
Exactly. I mean, looking at it from an African perspective, so I am a firm believer that Africa can feed the world, and in my generation, because I think I'm still young enough to see that happen. But for Africa to feed the world, and I mean 60% of the arable land is on the African continent. Majority of our population is under the age of 20. And they're really excited about technology, right? So how do we achieve that? And for the support that we have received through ESA or other impact investors, I think the biggest challenge has been the patience that the money or their funding should bring is not evident. And I'll just give the example from an African entrepreneur perspective. Only 2% of venture capital in the world goes into the African continent.
It's astonishing.
2%. So at the end of the day, when I think about my goal of feeding the world and saying we need to invest in the continent, it becomes very difficult because for every $100, I may just get $2 and I may not be able to serve your next breakfast. So, and the problem is, for the continent especially, when you look at space assets, and I think Rune has mentioned clearly, there is that gap, that capacity building gap. We went very fast to talk to the banks and said, hey, we have a point of sale technology that is being used across the country to digitize smallholder farmer transactions. Every time a farmer walks into a shop to buy seed or to buy fertilizer, we manage to digitize that activity. Now helping a farmer to have a digital presence, and then using that with geodata to then say, we can actually tell you that this farmer has been producing. But at the end of the day, many of the banks will still not lend, and less than 5% of the funding from the banks goes into the agriculture space. So it's, you wonder, right? As an entrepreneur, you struggle to try and see how to scale the business, but you cannot just build the technology because the market is not ready for it. The market needs to be educated, but you do not have investors who are willing to give you that time to learn. So ESA has supported us to demonstrate that this is technically feasible, and there would be a commercial case down the line, but it may need another 3 to 5 years. But with 2% of capital going into the market, who will believe and who will back the next generation to feed the world, right? So that's basically the disbalance that we see. We lack the patient capital coming into our markets, and then building in Africa is maybe different than building in Estonia and the US, because you just don't have one problem to solve. I talked about the Amazon of agriculture, not because the idea for us was to try and set up warehouses and manage logistics, but you realize that for you to actually achieve your goal and to actually generate the revenue required, you need to solve many other little problems along the way, and that does not build investor confidence, because let's say you're trying to do everything, you need to focus, but the market is not ready for a very clear silo kind of product. So those are some of the struggles that we face every day, solving all the problems across the value chain because no one else is, and not having the patient capital to help us actually grow the business, because this is not an overnight success story. This will take time, and we need the right partners for it.
I'm interested to put Runa's question that he said earlier to you. Are people knocking down your door to try and find out more about what you're doing? It feels like there's an opportunity there for...
Actually, yes.
Yeah.
So very many people are excited and saying, what you're doing is amazing, we like it. Show us the traction, show us that you're profitable, show us that you've reached these kind of targets. And I think that's then the bottleneck, that there is a missing gap between what initial grants and demonstration projects can fund and bigger ticket sizes of scaling the business. So trying to raise $10 million for us as a company is a huge struggle because they come later. And so we miss the people who are knocking at our door saying, we want exactly this missing middle, that's where we want to work. Many come and say, this is great, but talk to us next year.
Thank you. Jana, I want to ask you this question, and then we're going to come to the audience. So do you have your questions ready? What have been the biggest challenges for you in starting the company, and particularly as it pertains to space?
Yeah, I have a little bit different route. When we started out, 2019, we established the entity, we're starting to fundraise, and then 2020, COVID hit. So everything kind of stopped, and end of 2020, actually, we got the first funding or the grant from EBRD. We won the My Galileo Solutions to this competition, and we got the first funding through that. That actually helped us to survive. We got to hire our first person there. We actually got to build actual robots that were striving the airports at the end of the year. And with ESA BIC also, right next same year, we got the first funding to accelerate a little bit and show that we can build the robot. We can actually make the solution that can work. And with that, we raised the first funding round. So this money was exactly needed at that time. These grants helped us to survive and actually show to the venture capital investors also that this is a feasible solution. This actually solves a problem. Also, we went to the US, we proved that the market wants it. So in that sense, we were really lucky to work with ESA and EUSPA both. And in that sense, the financial struggle was there exactly, and that helped us along the way. And that helped us on the other hand also that for the technical side, as you mentioned as well, very hard to understand how to work with that space data, with the Earth observation data. It's very difficult. You need to dig into that a lot, and the programs helped us. Had weekly meetings, and we got to understand more and more. We got to look into it, and then also, do we work with partners? Do we work with the data directly? So that is a real struggle as a startup also, how to access it, how to work with the data, how to make it feasible as a business side also, so we don't lose money while working with the data. So these are all the struggles that we worked, but I would say like financially, definitely that helped us.
Sorry, come
If I may, so there is one thing here which is very interesting what Jano is saying. A lot about this, since we are talking mainly with bankers here, is about how we manage the financial risk. Yeah? Because I do understand the hesitation on the side of the bankers towards technologies that you don't understand, things that have been maybe demonstrated in the local scale somewhere, but maybe not completely understood. I think what is important here is that we work together on good models for how to deal with the risk of all of this, the right models for public and private partnerships. We are dealing a lot, for example, with the European Investment Bank on defining hopefully new and good models that can help us bring space technology to the market in ways that were not happened before, and there is no reason why EIB would be the only place where that is happening. We have also on ESA side, we have a physical presence in the World Bank in Washington, D.C. We have a physical presence also in the Asian Development Bank in Manila, precisely for dealing with these kind of issues, to be able to not only demonstrate what the technology can do, but also to absorb the question from the side of the bankers, how we can actually address those and make sure that the will to invest and the will to further these applications and to scale these applications and services is growing, because it is seen as positive risk rather than something to be scared of. Yeah? And this is where we need to work together.
Thank you. Well, we've had lots of questions from the audience, so let's turn to some of those. But before we do, I'd like to invite Tuva Ataseva back onto the stage, because I'm sure with an astronaut in the room, people will also want to hear from him. So if you'd like to take a seat, Tuva. We have got roving mics in the room, so please do put up your hand if you have a question. On Slido, we've had several of the same coming through, which is all about how long will it take for space tech to become a mainstream business, and what sectors can it be applied in? I don't know, Runa, if you want to kick off with that one.
In some sectors, we are not far. I mean, when we talk about agriculture, when we talk about things linked to disaster risk management, all these type of activities, I think we are already gone pretty far. When it comes to mobility, energy, other sectors, it will take more time. It's difficult to predict exactly how long it's going to take, because what we see is, although we talk also about problems before, or challenges before, there is a significant growth in this downstream market. We are talking 15 to 20% per year. It's still a niche market compared to the global space economy, but it is growing fast. And exactly where it is going to take us depends also on the appetite in the market to absorb all of these things. And well, I find it hard to give a number of years to this question, but we are not far. Technologically, we are not far. And because the amount of and quality of information that is coming back from space is tremendous. So it's not the technology itself that is the real challenge here. Is making it simple, making it understood, and making it useful for people who are not even interested in understanding how a satellite works or what hyperspectral measurement actually means. Jana was talking about that. It's difficult to understand Earth observation, and we do understand that. But we are here to support it.
Tuva, do you want to chip in there? Because you've been talking about microgravity. When you have conversations with people about that as a commercial application, what's the reaction? And is it something that you think is becoming more mainstream?
Yes, it is becoming more mainstream every day, because thanks to the International Space Station, which has been in orbit for the last 25 years, we have been able to conduct some meaningful research, and those initial low TRL activities, and understand the benefits of microgravity, growing some advanced protein crystals under those conditions, synthesizing advanced alloys, and also working on some biotech applications, how human cells degrade or sort of grow better under those interesting environments. So it has enabled. So we had this enabling platform that has helped us over the last 25 years to finally start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, if you will. And one of the major things that I believe we need to solve, as you mentioned, there are not too many technical issues that we need to solve, but there's one major one which has to do with access, this launch capacity, and also bringing back whatever you produce in space down to Earth. And I think we're at the cusp of solving that major problem as well with the system that is called Starship. I'm sure all of you have heard of it, this SpaceX's next generation launcher system. Currently, with Falcon 9 and similar systems, we can launch roughly 5 to 7 tons of payload up in space, and down mass is even smaller. One launch of Starship is going to put estimates 150 tons. So it's roughly 30 times more mass we're going to be able to launch into space. And it's going to be a great enabler of all of these interesting, today nascent-looking applications to become mainstream and really impactful in the future. So we're really, really close. I don't want to say this couple of years away, but within the next, not necessarily 5 years, but 20 to 25 years, we are going to be manufacturing some interesting materials and biotechnological interventions in space and uplifting people's lives here on the planet.
Thank you. which leads me on nicely to one of the questions from the audience, which is, what would be the next giant step in science and space tech, and what are the main obstacles to that? I don't know, Rune, if you want to start, and then perhaps we can go around the panel.
So there are two types of...
The next leap for mankind.
Well, first of all, when it comes to the understanding of the planet, the triple crisis, all of these things, what is quite clear to us is that there are things that need to, well, we need to put new types of payloads into space, new instruments into space that will be able to see the world a bit differently. That means usually large radars, or we are talking active systems, not passive detectors, but active systems, radars that are able to penetrate into places where radar systems of today do not. And also systems that probe the atmosphere in a different way than today. So there are something which is called LiDAR, so close to lasers, that we use to profile things like humidity and atmospheric composition and also dynamics in the atmosphere in a way that we were not able to do today, to understand the interaction between land, ocean, and the atmosphere. This is a major breakthrough that is needed here, and we need sizable space missions to be able to do so. And also what is interesting, in order to understand the heat engine of the planet, is that we need to be able to probe the oceans that cover 2/3 of this planet's surface in a way that we are not doing today. And today we can easily measure ocean color, sea level, ocean temperature, maybe sort of plankton and these kind of things on the surface and also the ocean dynamics, wind waves and so forth. But we are not able to, from space, to see deeper into the ocean. And this is something that we need to look into in order to be able to understand even better today what is actually happening Earth system-wise. Yeah?
Jano, how about you? What are you most excited about? What's coming down the tracks?
Yeah, I'm happy to chip in. So I would say that overall, whatever, it's hard to predict the future, but it's whatever the application is it launching very easily rockets to space and working on the new technologies into space, or is it Earth observation that you can use on space? There's so many good applications that have come from that. I definitely feel that it is changing now. The data becomes more accessible, which is much needed, and also this data is traveling much quicker to the ordinary people. That same breakthroughs that are working on there, ordinary people are now getting it much quicker, and that gets to the use in the ordinary regular life. So looking for a very narrow perspective, our business is the infrastructure. This needs to be changing also after the different events that are happening in the world. They need to rebuild, so it's getting much quicker to estimate that, much quicker to understand what's going on, and also this is much needed for the future because the cities are changing, there's different things being automated, and this needs to be all work together with the governments and everyone else.
How about you, Kazito?
Actually, I think we are at a point where we still need to understand what we already have. I think what, the data, the petabytes that are there, I would struggle more thinking about how do we understand what we have. The future is, we already have a lot of that at the table. I think, the rise of AI provides opportunities to actually unlock more knowledge from the data that we already have. So geo-AI solutions coming up. So I'm curious to see what sort of the next level would be from a technological perspective. But I think from a user perspective, from an entrepreneur, it's unlocking the value of what is already there and basically trying to make better use of it.
Tuva, is there anything that you're particularly excited about coming down the tracks?
I tried to briefly touch upon, while I was delivering my initial speech, the biotechnological research that we're conducting on board space platforms is very, very exciting. Right now, you can maybe classify it as research, and that is not a phrase that I bet bankers are a fan of, right? It doesn't sound too fundable and bankable, as you guys call it. But, so the name of this bank is European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, right? Right now, in the 21st century, we, as slightly advanced apes with opposable thumbs, started to construct in Earth's orbit and construct some interesting research and manufacturing capacity and infrastructure. So the applications, the potential stem cell therapies, potential disease models that we're going to be able to implement only under those conditions effectively. People are sending solid tumors to space, have them grow, test out certain immunological and chemotherapeutic interventions on them, and try to develop vaccines against particular diseases. We have the opportunity, the potential to solve cancer through space research. So those are not far-fetched sort of science fiction-y things. Science fiction is becoming science fact at a very rapid pace, and I truly believe organizations like EBRD has the potential, has the means to accelerate that growth even further.
Thank you. Thank you very much, all of you. You've clearly inspired a lot of people. There are lots of people who are now saying, can we start funds for space AI, emerging technology?
Let's do it.
And Jano, someone saying, can you bring the pavement lining robots to EBRD countries? It's much needed.
It seems it's needed, yeah. It needs to be done.
So thank you very much. Thanks to all of you watching at home as well. For those of you in the room, please do stay seated because there is more to come for you. But to those of you watching online, that's all from Riga. Thank you very much indeed. So, we have got a special announcement of increased cooperation between the ESA and the EBRD. And to tell us more and introduce herself, please welcome Fanny to the stage. Thank you.